You look like valet." The insult lands with a smirk and a force of practiced cruelty. Stephen Williams doesn't blink. His eyes remain steady, jaw unmoved, as though the words have merely passed through air. But behind his silence, something flickers. Controlled, precise. The showroom gleams like a curated museum of excess. Bentleys and Ferraris arranged beneath chandeliers that cost more than most homes, their polished bodies reflecting the exclusivity of a world not meant to be entered, only inherited. Here, champagne is served before handshakes, and the cost of admission is not just wealth, but pedigree. Stephen, dressed in a navy suit cut with the precision of a Savile Row veteran, wears no visible logos, no ostentatious accessories, only a vintage gold Omega and the unmistakable confidence of a man used to signing decisions rather than begging for permission. He walks toward the McLaren, posture relaxed yet deliberate. Jake moves to intercept. "I'm looking to buy," Stephen says evenly. Jake scoffs. "Maybe try something used. Something more your level?" A soft chuckle ripples from nearby guests. "What if the man you tried to humiliate was the one coming to decide your fate?" The showroom bustles with the kind of activity that suggests serious business being conducted. Well-dressed customers in their 50s and 60s sip champagne from crystal flutes, while sales associates guide them through private consultations in glass-walled offices. Stephen notices immediately that every other customer receives warm greetings filled with genuine enthusiasm, detailed attention that borders on reverence, and the kind of respectful service that transforms shopping into an experience worthy of the price tags involved. The contrast couldn't be more stark. While other customers are welcomed like visiting royalty, Stephen is treated like an unexpected interruption to the day's normal flow of business. He approached the midnight blue McLaren that first caught his attention, running his fingers along the carbon fiber body with the appreciation of someone who understands automotive engineering at a fundamental level. The specifications fascinate him. The 7-speed dual-clutch transmission that can shift faster than human reflexes, the twin-turbo V8 engine that produces 650 horsepower, the advanced aerodynamics that allow the vehicle to slice through air like a precision instrument designed for speed. "Beautiful machine," Stephen murmurs, genuinely impressed by the craftsmanship that represents years of research and development. He photographs the interior from several angles, noting the hand-stitched leather seats that required hundreds of hours of skilled labor, the sophisticated dashboard display that integrates cutting-edge technology with classical design principles, and the attention to detail that justifies the vehicle's extraordinary price. His questions reveal deep knowledge that goes far beyond casual automotive interest. He asks about torque curves and their relationship to real-world performance, suspension geometry and its impact on handling characteristics, the delicate balance between power-to-weight ratios and track performance that separates exceptional vehicles from merely expensive ones. Jake hovers nearby, his discomfort growing with each passing minute, as Stephen demonstrates expertise that contradicts every assumption about who belongs in this environment. The young salesman's body language becomes increasingly defensive, his responses shorter and more dismissive with each interaction. "Yes," A said petulantly. When Stephen asks about financing options, Jake's response carries an unmistakable edge that cuts through the pretense of professional courtesy. "These aren't typically financed through your neighborhood banks," he says, the emphasis on neighborhood making his meaning crystal clear. "We work with specialized lenders who understand the unique requirements of luxury vehicle ownership." Stephen continues his examination undeterred, asking detailed questions about maintenance schedules, insurance requirements, and warranty coverage that demonstrate serious purchase intent. Each inquiry reveals sophisticated understanding of luxury vehicle ownership, yet Jake responds with increasing skepticism that borders on hostility. "Do you understand the lifestyle commitments involved in luxury ownership?" Jake asks, his tone suggesting that Stephen couldn't possibly comprehend such sophisticated concepts. These vehicles require specialized care, premium facilities, and connections within the luxury automotive community. It's not just about making payments, it's about maintaining relationships and reputation. The discrimination reveals itself through 1,000 small cuts, each one designed to communicate that Stephen doesn't belong in this rarefied environment. While other customers receive immediate attention from multiple staff members, Stephen waits. While others are offered refreshments and comfortable seating, he's ignored. While others are invited to sit in the vehicles and experience their luxury firsthand, he's watched with the kind of suspicion typically reserved for shoplifters. Security guard David Chen, a middle-aged man with the bearing of someone who takes his responsibilities seriously, makes his third unnecessary pass through the showroom. Each time, he lingers longer near Stephen's location, his presence becoming more obvious and more threatening with each circuit through the marble-floored space. From her glass office overlooking the showroom like a command center, manager Patricia Westbrook observes the unfolding scene with a frown that deepens each time she glances in Stephen's direction. Her office walls display certificates of achievement, awards for sales excellence, and photographs of her with various luxury vehicle manufacturers' executives. She's built her career on understanding customers and managing situations that could damage the dealership's reputation. Stephen overhears whispered conversations between staff members, their voices carrying just far enough to ensure he can hear their words. "How did he even find this place?" one asks, the question implying that Stephen's presence represents some kind of security breach. "Maybe he's lost," suggests another, as if Stephen's appearance in their showroom could only be explained by confusion or mistake. The comments aren't quite loud enough to be confrontational, but they're certainly loud enough to be heard and understood. Each whispered exchange adds another layer to the growing pattern of discrimination that Stephen is documenting with the methodical precision of someone who understands exactly what he's experiencing. When Jake finally asks for identification to verify serious purchase intent, Stephen complies without protest. He hands over his driver's license and credit cards, maintaining his professional demeanor, even as the discriminatory treatment becomes increasingly obvious and increasingly insulting. During a brief phone call, Stephen speaks in measured tones about quarterly projections and board expectations, his conversation revealing hints of significant financial responsibility that extend far beyond individual consumer purchases. His words suggest involvement in corporate decision-making at levels that would surprise anyone listening, carefully enough to understand their implications. "I'll handle this personally," Stephen concludes his call, the words carrying a weight that Jake either doesn't notice or chooses to ignore. The phrase suggests access to resources and authority that contradict every assumption about Stephen's position in the world. Jake's hostility intensifies as the morning progresses, his behavior evolving from subtle dismissal to open questioning of Stephen's credentials, employment history, and connections to the luxury automotive market. The young salesman seems determined to prove that Stephen doesn't belong in this environment, his persistence suggesting that more than professional duty is driving his action. "Let's be realistic about your situation," Jake says, his tone growing more condescending with each word. He positions himself between Stephen and the vehicles, his body language designed to establish dominance and control. "These vehicles require significant insurance coverage. We're talking about annual premiums that exceed most people's monthly car payments. Are you prepared for that kind of ongoing financial commitment?" Stephen responds with specific questions about coverage requirements, deductible structures, and preferred insurance providers that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of luxury vehicle ownership. His knowledge encompasses not just the basics of automotive insurance, but the specialized requirements of high-performance vehicles that appreciate in value rather than depreciate. "I'm familiar with collector vehicle insurance," Stephen says calmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who has navigated these waters before. I understand the requirements for agreed value coverage, the importance of specialized repair facilities, and the need for drivers who understand the unique characteristics of high-performance vehicles. Jake's discomfort becomes increasingly apparent as Stephen's expertise contradicts every assumption about who belongs in this environment. The young salesman's questions become more aggressive, his tone more insulting, his behavior more desperate. The microaggressions multiply like compound interest, each one building on the last to create an atmosphere of hostility that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. "Are you familiar with European automotive engineering?" Jake asks, as if Stephen couldn't possibly understand the sophistication of German or Italian manufacturing. "These aren't like the cars you're probably used to driving. They require specialized knowledge, specialized maintenance, specialized everything." Stephen's responses become more clipped, his patience wearing thin, despite his determination to remain professional. The questions reveal not just bias, but ignorance. Jake's assumptions about Stephen's background and experience are not only wrong, but offensively so. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable looking at something more accessible," Jake suggests, his voice dripping with condescension. "There's a Honda dealership about 10 minutes down the road. They specialize in more practical transportation solutions." The suggestion hangs in the air like an insult, its implications clear to everyone within hearing distance. Stephen asks to speak with the manager, his request reasonable and his tone professional, only to be told that Patricia is busy with serious customers. The dismissal stings, particularly since Stephen can see Patricia through her glass office walls, chatting casually with other clients over coffee and pastries. Her body language suggests relaxed conversation rather than urgent business, making Jake's excuse obviously false. Other customers begin to notice the tension, their conversations quieting as they observe the unfolding confrontation. A wealthy couple in their 50s exchanges uncomfortable glances, their whispered conversation suggesting disapproval of something they're witnessing. An elderly man in an expensive suit shakes his head disapprovingly, though it's unclear whether his disapproval is directed at the discrimination or at Stephen's presence. Stephen begins documenting everything systematically, his approach methodical and professional. He photographs price tags and vehicle identification numbers, records the names of staff members who participate in or witness the discriminatory treatment, and uses his phone to capture audio of particularly egregious comments. His documentation builds a comprehensive record of the morning's events that will prove crucial in the coming hours. During another phone call, Stephen mentions corporate compliance and immediate review, his voice carrying an authority that seems to unnerve Jake. The conversation suggests access to significant resources and connections that extend far beyond typical customer relationships. "I understand," Stephen says into his phone, his voice carrying across the showroom. "Have the legal team review the acquisition timeline. I want to move forward today, if possible." When Stephen requests a test drive of the McLaren, Jake's refusal is immediate and absolute. "Insurance liability issues," he claims, though no such concerns were raised for other customers who have been allowed to drive vehicles worth similar amounts. "We can't allow unqualified individuals to operate these vehicles." The word unqualified hangs in the air like a challenge, its implications clear to everyone present. Stephen's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, but he maintains his composure with the kind of self-control that comes from years of handling difficult situations. "What qualifications are required?" Stephen asks, his voice remaining steady despite the obvious insult. "And are these requirements applied consistently to all customers?" Jake's defensive response reveals his growing discomfort with the situation. "It's standard procedure," he insists, though his inability to articulate specific policies suggests otherwise. "We have to protect our inventory from potential damage." The pause before potential damage carries implications that both men understand perfectly. Stephen's calm confidence seems to agitate Jake further, the young salesman's behavior becoming more erratic as his assumptions are challenged by Stephen's knowledge and composure. Jake calls for backup, summoning other staff members to form an informal barrier between Stephen and the premium vehicles. The atmosphere grows thick with hostility, yet Stephen continues to demonstrate the kind of quiet strength that comes from knowing exactly who he is and what he's capable of achieving. The confrontation reaches its devastating climax when Patricia Westbrook finally emerges from her office, her approach theatrical and calculated to create maximum embarrassment for Stephen, while reassuring other customers that the situation is under her control. She moves across the showroom floor with the confidence of someone who has handled difficult situations before, her expensive suit and perfectly styled hair announcing her authority to everyone present. "Sir," Patricia announces loudly, her voice carrying across the marble-floored space to ensure that everyone in the showroom can hear her words. The conversations halt mid-sentence, champagne glasses pause halfway to lips, and all eyes turn toward the unfolding drama. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're making our customers uncomfortable." The words hit like physical blows, each one designed to inflict maximum humiliation while maintaining the pretense of professional courtesy. Stephen absorbs the public embarrassment without visible reaction, though his hands clench slightly at his sides, the only outward sign of the anger and frustration building within him. "We serve a very specific clientele here," Patricia continues, her voice rising to ensure maximum public impact. "People who understand the culture of luxury ownership. People who fit our brand image and customer expectations." Stephen remains remarkably calm, his voice steady and controlled as he responds to Patricia's accusations. "Could you explain what specific policies I've violated?" he asks, his tone reasonable, despite the public humiliation he's enduring. "And could you clarify what you mean by culture of luxury ownership?" His questions reveal a sophisticated understanding of federal anti-discrimination laws, public accommodation requirements, and corporate liability issues that extends far beyond typical customer knowledge. Patricia's discomfort becomes apparent, as Stephen demonstrates expertise that suggests he's not the unsophisticated interloper she assumed him to be. "Let me be perfectly clear," Patricia says, her voice rising to ensure that every customer and staff member can hear her words. "You don't belong here. This isn't about money. It's about fit. Our brand has a reputation to maintain, and we're very selective about who we associate with that reputation." The words carry across the showroom like a physical assault, their implications clear to everyone present. Other customers shift uncomfortably, some averting their eyes while others watch with undisguised fascination. The elderly man who disapproved earlier nods approvingly, his expression suggesting that Patricia is handling the situation exactly as he would expect. Stephen absorbs the humiliation without visible reaction, though the cost of maintaining his composure is evident in the tension around his eyes and the careful control of his breathing. "I understand your position," he says quietly, his dignity intact despite the public embarrassment. "May I speak with the franchise owner?" Patricia's refusal is immediate and dismissive, her tone suggesting that Stephen's request is absurd on its face. "Mr. Sterling doesn't meet with every random person who walks through our doors," she says, the word random carrying particular venom. "If you have concerns, you can contact our corporate office." She provides the corporate contact information with obvious reluctance, clearly hoping to pass the problem to someone else while removing Stephen from her immediate environment. Her tone suggests that she considers the matter closed, Stephen dismissed, and her authority firmly established. During this public confrontation, Stephen continues his systematic documentation with the methodical precision of someone who understands exactly what he's experiencing and what he needs to prove. His phone discreetly records the interaction, while he photographs corporate compliance certificates displayed prominently on the showroom walls. He notes Patricia's name tag, observes the franchise agreements visible through her office window, and memorizes details that will prove crucial in the coming hours. Stephen makes a crucial phone call, his voice quiet but firm as he speaks into his device. "Jennifer, I need you to pull the Premier Luxury Motors file. Yes, the acquisition paperwork. Have legal review their franchise agreement, specifically the non-discrimination clauses." The call concludes with Stephen thanking Patricia for her clarity and stating that he'll be in touch through appropriate channels. His calm professionalism in the face of public humiliation demonstrates a strength that transcends the immediate situation, suggesting reserves of power and authority that nobody present suspects. As Stephen prepares to leave, he takes one final look around the showroom, his gaze taking in every detail of the scene. His expression reveals neither anger nor defeat, but rather the quiet determination of someone who has just been provided with all the motivation he needs to take decisive action. "Yes, ma'am," he answers, looking displeased at the question, at the way he seemed to be. The showroom watches his departure with a mixture of relief and curiosity, none of the staff or customers understanding that they have just witnessed the beginning of a transformation that will change everything about this place. Patricia's confidence proves dangerously short-lived as she makes the critical decision to call in reinforcements, her phone call summoning the one person she believes can definitively resolve the situation. Within minutes, the deep rumble of a Bentley Continental announces the arrival of Richard Sterling, the dealership's owner and Patricia's ultimate authority. Sterling's entrance transforms the atmosphere instantly. Staff members straighten their posture, conversations lower to respectful whispers, and the general bustle of the showroom takes on a more formal, more deferential quality. This is a man whose presence commands attention, whose opinion carries weight, whose displeasure can end careers. Richard Sterling is a man in his early 60s who has built his considerable fortune on what he calls traditional values and knowing your market. His expensive suit bears the subtle signs of custom tailoring. His gold jewelry announces his wealth without quite crossing the line into ostentation, and his confident bearing suggests a man who has never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with sufficient application of money and influence. "Where's the troublemaker?" Sterling asks, his voice carrying the kind of authority that comes from decades of giving orders and expecting immediate obedience. Patricia points towards Stephen, who stands near the entrance, apparently preparing to leave. Sterling approaches with theatrical confidence, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor with each purposeful step. "I'm Richard Sterling," he announces, as if the name should carry immediate recognition and respect. "I built this business on relationships and reputation. We don't serve everyone, we serve the right people." The confrontation escalates rapidly as Sterling explains his dealership's exclusive membership model, his voice carrying the conviction of someone who has never questioned his right to make such decisions. He claims the right to refuse service to maintain brand integrity, citing fabricated policies about lifestyle verification and community standing that sound official but have no basis in law or corporate policy. "You see," Sterling continues, his voice carrying across the showroom with the confidence of someone addressing his own domain, "luxury isn't just about money. It's about breeding, education, connections. It's about understanding your place in the social hierarchy and respecting the boundaries that keep civilization functioning properly." His words become increasingly inflammatory as he questions Stephen's address, employment history, and social connections. The implications are clear. Sterling believes that Stephen's presence threatens the dealership's reputation and customer base, that allowing him to purchase a vehicle would somehow diminish the value of every other customer's purchase. "How do I know you're not involved in questionable activities?" Sterling asks, his accusations becoming more direct and more insulting. "These days, you never know where people get their money. Could be drugs, could be money laundering, could be fronting for someone else with connections we don't want to associate with our business. Stephen's composure begins to crack for the first time since entering the dealership. His voice remains controlled, but his questions become sharper, more focused, more challenging. What specific policies govern your customer selection process? He asks, his tone carrying an edge that suggests this conversation is heading toward dangerous territory. Are these requirements applied to all customers equally? Can you provide documentation of your membership criteria? Sterling's response reveals the systematic nature of the discrimination, his explanation demonstrating that Stephen's treatment isn't an isolated incident, but part of a deliberate pattern. All staff members receive instructions to monitor Stephen closely, his presence treated as a security concern rather than a business opportunity. "You're forbidden from photographing our vehicles," Sterling declares, his tone suggesting that Stephen's documentation efforts have been noticed and are unwelcome. Trade secrets, proprietary information, competitive intelligence? We can't have random people gathering information about our inventory and operations. Stephen's identification is photocopied for security purposes, his personal information recorded in files that will be used to prevent future visits. He's required to provide 3 references and employment verification before any further interaction, requirements that were never mentioned to any other customer. Stephen steps outside to make a series of critical phone calls, his voice carrying an authority that would surprise anyone who witnessed his treatment inside the dealership. "Linda, I need the Premier Luxury Motors acquisition moved to today. Yes, today. Execute the purchase agreement and have our legal team review every employee contract for compliance violations." A second call follows immediately, Stephen's tone becoming more urgent as he accelerates plans that were apparently already in motion. "Contact the franchise corporate office. I want Sterling's performance metrics, customer satisfaction scores, and any outstanding compliance issues on my desk within the hour." Inside the dealership, Sterling's paranoia grows as he observes Stephen's extended phone conversations through the glass walls. The older man begins making increasingly desperate moves, his behavior becoming more erratic as his assumptions about Stephen are challenged by evidence that contradicts everything he believes about who belongs in his establishment. "I'm calling the police," Sterling announces, his threat carrying across the showroom. "This is trespassing, harassment, and possibly something worse. I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but it ends now." Stephen's phone buzzes constantly with updates from his team, each message bringing news that will soon transform the morning's humiliation into strategic advantage. Legal has identified multiple franchise violations. Financial records reveal discriminatory lending practices. And Human Resources has documented a pattern of bias in hiring and promotion decisions. A young black couple enters the dealership during the height of the confrontation, their treatment providing additional evidence of systematic discrimination. They receive identical hostile reception, their questions dismissed, their presence treated as an unwelcome intrusion into an environment where they clearly don't belong. Stephen's behavior becomes increasingly confident as his phone calls continue, his posture straightening, his voice carrying more authority with each conversation. "I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey," Sterling finally declares, his voice carrying across the showroom in a moment of complete loss of control. "You don't belong here, and you never will." The declaration proves to be Sterling's fatal mistake, the final piece of evidence that will soon transform Stephen's humiliation into Sterling's complete professional destruction. Stephen's phone rings with perfect timing, the sound cutting through the hostile atmosphere like a blade through silk. He answers with the same calm professionalism he's maintained throughout the morning's ordeal, his voice carrying a new note of authority that transforms the entire dynamic of the situation. "Yes, Jennifer, I'm here now," Stephen says, his words carrying across the suddenly quiet showroom. "Go ahead with the announcement." The effect is immediate and dramatic. Within minutes, staff phones begin buzzing with urgent messages, their screens lighting up with calls from corporate headquarters. Patricia receives a priority call. her face growing pale as she listens to the voice on the other end. "Ma'am, this is David Chen from Corporate Compliance," the voice says, audible to those nearby. "We need to speak with you immediately about a serious customer service incident that occurred at your location today. Our CEO is personally involved in this matter." Stephen approaches Sterling with a folder of legal documents, his demeanor shifting from defensive to commanding, with the fluid grace of someone stepping into their natural element. "Mr. Sterling, I believe we need to discuss your franchise agreement, specifically Section 12 regarding corporate compliance and non-discrimination policies." Sterling's confident facade crumbles as he examines the documents, his hands beginning to shake as he recognizes his own signature on contracts that he apparently never read carefully enough to understand their full implications. The legal language is dense, but the consequences are clear. Violation of non-discrimination clauses carries severe penalties, including immediate franchise termination. "I'm Stephen Williams," Stephen states calmly, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Chief Executive Officer of Automotive Holdings International. As of 1 hour ago, my company has acquired Premier Luxury Motors through an accelerated purchase agreement. I'm your new boss." The revelation sends shockwaves through the showroom, the impact visible in the stunned faces of staff members and customers alike. Jake's face drains of color as he realizes the magnitude of his mistake. Patricia staggers slightly, her confident authority evaporating as she comprehends the complete reversal of power. Stephen addresses the staff directly, his voice carrying the calm authority of effective leadership developed through years of managing complex organizations. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that Automotive Holdings International purchased this dealership specifically because of multiple complaints about discriminatory practices. What happened here today is exactly what we came to investigate and correct." He continues with systematic precision, outlining the immediate ownership change, announcing a comprehensive investigation into discriminatory practices, and introducing the interim management team that will arrive within the hour to oversee the transition. His words carry the weight of someone who has orchestrated similar transformations before. Sterling realizes with growing horror that his franchise agreement has been terminated, his business relationships severed, and his reputation destroyed. The contracts he signed years ago contain clauses that he never imagined would be enforced, penalties that will cost him millions of dollars and decades of work. "The franchise termination is effective immediately," Stephen explains, his tone professional but implacable. "Violation of non-discrimination clauses constitutes breach of contract, triggering immediate penalties and forfeiture of all franchise rights." Patricia discovers that her actions have been recorded, documented, and reported to corporate headquarters through channels she never knew existed. Her discriminatory behavior has not only cost her employment, but has also exposed her to potential legal liability that could follow her for years. Jake learns that his discriminatory treatment of customers has been observed by the one person in the world with the power to end his career instantly. His employment is under immediate termination, his behavior documented in reports that will make it nearly impossible to find similar work in the luxury automotive industry. Stephen demonstrates true leadership by focusing on systematic change rather than personal revenge. He doesn't gloat over his victory or seek to humiliate his tormentors in the way they humiliated him. Instead, he concentrates on implementing policies that will prevent future discrimination and create an inclusive environment for all customers. His team arrives with impressive efficiency, legal counsel to review all operational practices, human resources specialists to implement comprehensive retraining programs, new management to establish inclusive customer service policies, and diversity consultants to create ongoing accountability measures. The corporate power display is impressive but not ostentatious, demonstrating the kind of professional competence that builds successful businesses, rather than merely destroying failing ones. Stephen's people work with quiet efficiency to transform the dealership's operations, while maintaining continuity of service for legitimate customers. Well, Stephen's people learn quickly, and they don't learn. Durable faces complete professional destruction that extends far beyond the immediate situation. Loss of franchise rights worth millions of dollars, breach of contract penalties that will consume his personal assets, potential federal discrimination lawsuits that could continue for years, and industry blacklisting that will prevent him from working in automotive retail ever again. Stephen explains the broader implications of the morning's events, his vision extending far beyond personal vindication to systematic transformation. This dealership will become a model for inclusive luxury retail, he states, his words carrying the authority of someone who has the power to make such promises reality. Discriminatory practices will be replaced with merit-based service. All staff will receive comprehensive bias training, and community outreach programs will be established to repair relationships damaged by years of exclusionary policies. Sterling's empire collapses with stunning speed, the destruction so complete and so rapid that it leaves observers breathless. Within hours of Stephen's revelation, the former dealership owner faces consequences that extend far beyond the immediate situation. Each penalty building on the last to create a cascade of professional and personal ruin. His franchise termination becomes effective immediately, triggering financial penalties of $3.2 million and contract violations that will haunt him for the remainder of his career. The legal documents he signed years ago contain clauses that he never imagined would be enforced, penalties that seemed theoretical when he agreed to them, but now prove devastatingly real. The destruction proves comprehensive and systematic. Sterling's leveraged business model, built on the assumption of continued franchise relationships and steady revenue streams, crumbles when those relationships are severed. His 3 other dealership locations fall under immediate review, their franchise agreements scrutinized for similar discriminatory practices that could trigger additional penalties. Personal bankruptcy becomes inevitable as Sterling's assets are called in to cover penalties and violations. The man who hours earlier was proclaiming his superiority and his right to exclude others now faces financial ruin that will affect his family, his lifestyle, and his future opportunities for decades to come. Patricia's professional destruction proves equally thorough and equally devastating. Her termination comes with cause, forfeiting severance packages and retirement benefits that she had counted on for her financial security. The automotive management industry, surprisingly small and tightly interconnected, quickly spreads word of her discriminatory behavior through professional networks that extend across the country. Industry blacklisting follows with frightening speed. Patricia's name becomes permanently associated with discrimination and poor judgment, making her unemployable in any customer-facing role within the luxury retail sector. Professional certifications and licensing face review by industry boards, potentially removing her ability to work in management positions anywhere in the automotive industry. Jake's consequences reflect his lower position in the organizational hierarchy, but prove equally devastating to his career prospects and personal aspirations. His immediate termination comes with the loss of commissions on pending sales, money he had already mentally allocated to upcoming expenses and financial obligations. The young salesman discovers that the luxury automotive industry maintains detailed databases of employee behavior and performance. His actions at Premier Luxury Motors will follow him through computer records and professional references, making it virtually impossible to find similar employment in luxury retail of any kind. Stephen ensures that accountability extends throughout the organization, his approach systematic and proportional. Every employee who participated in the morning's discrimination faces graduated consequences appropriate to their level of involvement and authority. Those who remain silent face mandatory training and probationary periods, while those who actively participated face more severe penalties, including termination. Corporate policies undergo complete revision to prevent future incidents. the new standards going far beyond legal requirements to establish cultural expectations that make discrimination not just wrong, but professionally suicidal for anyone who works for the company. Legal ramifications expand exponentially as the investigation reveals deeper problems that extend far beyond the morning's events. The discrimination against Stephen proves to be part of a documented pattern spanning multiple years, with systematic exclusion of minority customers, discriminatory lending practices, and a hostile work environment for diverse employees. Previous victims of discrimination begin coming forward, encouraged by Stephen's example and the promise of corporate accountability. Their stories reveal the true scope of the problem and provide additional evidence for legal action against the former management team. Financial justice extends beyond immediate penalties to long-term consequences that will affect Sterling's family and associates. His reputation makes it impossible for him to secure future financing for business ventures. His industry connections dissolve overnight as former associates distance themselves to avoid guilt by association. The community impact extends far beyond the dealership itself, rippling through the local business environment and the broader luxury retail industry. Local media coverage of the ownership change and discrimination issues sparks broader conversations about bias in luxury retail, forcing other businesses to examine their own practices. Social media amplifies the message exponentially, creating a viral story of accountability that reaches national attention and inspires similar confrontations with discrimination in other industries. The hashtag #DignityDealership trends nationally, encouraging others to document and challenge discriminatory treatment. Other luxury retailers begin reviewing their own practices immediately, concerned that they might face similar scrutiny and similar consequences. The story becomes a cautionary tale that influences corporate policies across multiple industries, demonstrating the power of documented accountability when backed by sufficient resources and determination. Employee protection becomes a priority as Stephen demonstrates ethical leadership that extends beyond punishment to positive transformation. Innocent employees keep their positions with enhanced job security, while those who provided information about discriminatory practices receive protection and recognition for their courage in speaking truth to power. The transformation proves that justice can be both swift and thorough when proper resources are applied strategically and systematically. Sterling's fall from power demonstrates that discriminatory behavior, regardless of apparent social or economic protection, carries serious consequences when confronted by determined opposition with sufficient power to enforce accountability. 3 months after the confrontation that transformed everything, Stephen walks through the showroom with the quiet satisfaction of someone who has seen justice prevail and positive change take root. The atmosphere has changed completely. Diverse customers browse confidently while a multicultural staff provides exceptional service that reflects genuine respect, rather than the superficial politeness that once masked underlying prejudice. The business metrics tell a compelling story of transformation and success. Sales have increased by 40% through inclusive practices that welcome all qualified customers, regardless of their appearance or background. Employee satisfaction scores have reached all-time highs as staff members work in an environment free from the toxic culture that previously defined their daily experience. Customer satisfaction ratings have improved dramatically as well, with reviews praising the dealership's commitment to respectful service and inclusive practices. The transformation has attracted new customers who specifically choose to do business with companies that demonstrate genuine commitment to equality and dignity. Stephen pauses near the same midnight blue McLaren that sparked his original visit, now surrounded by customers of all backgrounds who are treated with equal respect and professional attention. The vehicle represents not just automotive excellence, but the transformation that becomes possible when discrimination is replaced with genuine inclusivity and merit-based service. I didn't reveal my identity to prove my worth, Stephen reflects in a quiet moment, his voice carrying the wisdom of someone who has learned profound lessons from both struggle and success. I revealed it to prove that worth isn't determined by appearance, accent, or assumptions about where someone belongs in society. The broader implications of the morning's events continue to resonate throughout the automotive industry and beyond. Stephen's handling of the situation has become a case study in corporate leadership, demonstrating how power can be used to create positive change rather than simply to seek revenge or personal vindication. Discrimination doesn't just harm individuals, Stephen explains to a group of business leaders who have come to study the dealership's remarkable transformation. It destroys businesses, communities, and the souls of both victims and perpetrators. When we allow bias to guide our decisions, we all lose. Customers, employees, shareholders, and society as a whole. When dignity is denied in plain sight, will you look away or do something about it?